Hello, hello, my name is Dove. If you are new here, then welcome. If you are returning, then welcome back, and also I love you. Today we are going to be talking about the newest Hunger Games book, Sunrise on the Reaping. About a month ago, I made a video here on YouTube where I put together a bingo card for some of the things that I thought was going to happen in this book, both thematically and plot-wise. And today we're going to discuss it a bit and go through and see if I got any bingos. The way this video is going to go, I'm going to start with a couple of announcements, and then I'm going to give a spoiler-free review of the book, and then I will give you guys plenty of warning, but after that we're going to go full spoiler. Okay, we're going to talk about all sorts of stuff. So yeah, I think this is going to be really fun. So just a couple of quick announcements before we dive in. My Patreon is live, and the main thing that's on there right now is actually a chapter by chapter book club reaction discussion of Sunrise on the Reaping as I was reading it live. So if you want to see my unfiltered thoughts as I experienced this book, that is available to the $3 and up tiers. Also, now that this book is out, I am going to be returning to working on my series of district deep dives. So I have a poll on my Patreon for $5 members where you can vote on which district I'm going to cover next. Right now, as of today, it is April 11th. District 4 and District 7 are neck and neck. They keep going back and forth. So if you would like to vote on that, the poll for that will close on the date that I am now putting here on the screen. I don't know when this will be going on YouTube, how long it's going to take me to edit it, but I want to give you guys about a week after that happens. So this is the date that the poll will be closing. So make sure to get your votes in before then. I will start working on the outline for that video basically as soon as it closes. So we should be back into our normal run of things here on the channel very soon. Another little fun announcement, I know many of you guys have bought my zine and some bookmarks or other like Hunger Games art that I've done off of my Etsy. These are the bookmarks that I made for the, sorry, my camera is not on autofocus, there we go. For the original epilogue. This is like my best-selling thing in my shop. So I did in fact make bookmarks for Sunrise on the Reaping. Can you see it? Can you see it? There we go. And it's the geese in the meadow, and it says "Don't let it rise," and there's some little like dandelions and stuff. Those are available on my Etsy shop now. You can get either rounded corners or squared corners. I literally just have my little corner cutter here and I do it manually when you guys order. And then the last little thing, I got my book from the Powell's Books midnight release. I say midnight release in air quotes because it is midnight Eastern time, which means it was 9 p.m. here. Great for me because I don't want to go at midnight, but I did want to get my book immediately. Something I did not expect is they gave us all this cute little laminated bookmark that says, "I survived the Sunrise on the Reaping midnight release at Powell's Books on Hawthorne." I posted this on my Patreon when I first got it. Hello, focus. Hello, focus. Thank you. I posted this on my Patreon, and I thought it would be funny if I made this exact bookmark, but it just says, "I survived being jealous of Dove's bookmark." So, all that said, if you are a Patreon member and you buy anything from my Etsy shop, which is, you know, these bookmarks, like I said, I have a ton of postcards, I have my zines, all of that good stuff, and you would like a silly little bookmark, I'm going to give you a code and I will throw one in for free just because I think it's fun and funny. Also, I just want to apologize in advance if there's anything weird going on with the focus. I just upgraded my camera. Shout out eBay. All my bitches love eBay. I get all of my cool shit off there. I spend way too much money on eBay. It's really dangerous. But anyways, I upgraded my camera because my other camera, a lot of the videos that I make, not this one is chill, we're just hanging out, it's fine. But like the video essays that I do, those take a really long time to film. We're talking like 3 to 5 hours, right? Because also the further that I go, the more likely I am to mess up. And the more that I mess up, the more frustrated that I get, and the more that I mess up. And then compound that with the fact that my camera would start to overheat every like 10-15 minutes, and then I would have to wait 10-15 minutes between takes for it to cool back down. I got this camera specifically because it does not do that. It is well known for being a tank. It is an older model though, and it's known for having a bad autofocus. So to get around that, I got this little remote thing where you can like half press and it'll like focus for you. But I have to be mindful and like remember to do it as I move around. So all that said, I'm still figuring my shit out. Please be patient with me. But also, yay, a camera that won't overheat. That'll make the longer videos easier to do. Okay, anyways, I've talked in this intro for way too long, so I think we're just gonna jump in. I'm going to talk spoiler-free first, and then I will let you know when we're gonna get full-on spoilers. I'm gonna go through my bingo card. If you haven't already watched me making the bingo card, you can do that. I will link it. If that doesn't interest you, whatever. We're just hanging out, okay? We're just chilling. We're all friends here. Before we get too far, I just want to remind you guys, if you like this type of content, please go ahead to like this video, subscribe, let me know in the comments what you thought of the book. It really helps me out with the algorithm for people to see my stuff, and maybe someday I'll finally be able to quit my day job and do this full time, because I have been very frustrated by how little time I've had to dedicate to making videos this past month. So yeah, with that, we'll get going. Spoiler-free review, Sunrise on the Reaping. What if I told you guys this is my new favorite Hunger Games book? What if I told you guys I thought it was that good, that it's actually my new favorite Hunger Games book? Is that controversial? I actually don't think it is. Now, what I'm going to say, to give you guys some context here, is that I know that there's a general consensus from... I do feel like it's a general consensus. Obviously, there are people like me who are not a part of that consensus, but I think the general consensus is that Catching Fire is both the best book and best movie of the original series. Don't get me wrong, I love Catching Fire. I really, 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 really love Catching Fire, okay? It is an easy second place for me. But I'm a Mockingjay girl. I really am, and honestly, even more so as an adult than as a child. Because as a child, I liked Mockingjay, I did think at the time that it was both really slow and really rushed. And the funny thing is I actually do stand by that as an adult. I think that Mockingjay, pace-wise, the first half of it, very slow. Not a lot goes on. The second half of it, way too fast. Everything goes on and you don't have a second to process it. That exact thing that made me critical of it when I was a child is what makes me love it as an adult, because that's war. That is how war happens. There just isn't a chance to grieve on the battlefield. That's not how it works. On one hand, yeah, not a lot happens plot-wise in the first half of that book, but a lot is happening within Katniss and her psyche and what she was going through as a character. Because not only is she dealing with the emotional trauma of everything that she's just endured, she's also doing it with physical trauma. She has multiple traumatic brain injuries. Multiple traumatic brain injuries that she is dealing with. And I have had friends, I've seen people firsthand. I have seen what a serious concussion can do to people and how debilitating that is. And just to add that on top of everything else that she's going through, she's having to try to process all of this stuff when she can't even, like, she doesn't have a halfway decent short-term memory anymore. Like, it's insane, the stuff that she is put through. And even though that book is devastating, it breaks my heart. We lose so many wonderful people that we care about, and we do it right before the end of the war. I mean, it's just senseless, right? As all of the death in this series is. It's devastating. However, I really, really appreciate Suzanne Collins, number one, trusting her child audience to be able to grapple with these heavy topics, in such a straightforward way. Like, Katniss talks very plainly in her inner monologue, which I think really does serve the story in, like, getting to the meat and bones of the situation without glossing over it in any way, and allowing Katniss to grieve, allowing her to really sit there and think, yeah, this is really fucked up, this is really messed up, I'm really messed up from it. Everybody that I know is really messed up from all of the stuff that we've had to endure. And I appreciate that as a piece of storytelling more than I appreciate all of the fun stuff from Catching Fire. As much as I love Catching Fire, it's so fast-paced, there's so much going on, you get introduced to all of these fantastic new characters that we come to know and love. I don't find that, for me personally, as valuable in the grand scheme of things when you're considering storytelling as an art. Because a lot of people can make fun characters and interesting plot points. Not a lot of people let their characters grieve, at least not in the young adult space. Which is a really long way to say that the reason this book, I think, is now my favorite in the series is because you get the best of both worlds. You get all of the fun characters, like new characters, recurring characters that we get to know a bit better. We get a lot of familiar faces in this. There's a lot going on. There's so many twists and turns. A lot of the intrigue that you get in Catching Fire is included in this book. And also, after the games, Haymitch gets to go insane in the same way that Katniss gets to go insane. And in fact, there are just so many Haymitch and Katniss parallels throughout this entire book. What I did find really refreshing is I think Haymitch is the most reliable narrator we've had. Now let me talk about the term unreliable narrator for a second, because it gets slapped on Katniss a lot. And I think people hear unreliable narrator and they run with it in a way that it is not intended to be ran with or meant, which is that you think, oh, Katniss is unreliable, therefore I can't trust anything she says, which is objectively not what an unreliable narrator is. An unreliable narrator is a narrator that is giving a very biased perspective of events that is based, okay, you could argue that that's everybody, because everybody is living life through their own experience and through the context that they've grown up with in their life. But there are some outliers, right, who have like really, really messed up perceptions of what's going on because of their experiences, and both Katniss and Coriolanus fall into that category. Again, there is a lot of similarities in this type of like paranoia that they may feel towards other people, but it's still rooted in very different realities. Snow thinks that people are out to get them because people are evil and out to get him, versus Katniss thinks that people might be out to get her specifically because she knows how, like, what lengths people have to go to survive. She has had to go to those lengths herself, and so she doesn't necessarily see it as an indictment of somebody's character, but rather as an unfortunate consequence of the situations that people may be in their lives. All that to say, I do feel like this book is a breath of fresh air in like being able to, you can pretty much trust for the most part what Haymitch is interpreting things as. I feel like, again, Katniss, Coriolanus, you're reading that and you're like, I don't think that's true. I think you're being paranoid right now. Whereas with Haymitch, it's like, yeah, that's actually very reasonable. I agree with your logic here, how you came to this conclusion. I think it makes sense in the context of the story. I think it makes sense in the context of the world. It makes sense within the context of the characters. Haymitch can actually read people. That's really what it comes down to. He actually has a good sense of things and of others. Katniss, way too traumatized to be able to afford people the benefit of the doubt. Snow, way too selfish to do the same. Of course, we did know this book was going to be devastating. Yeah, didn't disappoint in that regard. Oh my god. I do think that this is probably the toughest book from the series to read. I mean, Mockingjay is really heavy. The thing with Mockingjay, though, is that even though that book is incredibly depressing and a lot of terrible shit goes down, you're still going through it knowing that by the end of the book, the war is going to end, no matter the cost, and there will be a semblance of some type of happy ending. I mean, it's not a happy ending. Nobody wins in war, right? Everybody loses, ultimately. But you know that it's going to end. The thing about this book is that you know how it ends, and it doesn't end with the end of the war. I mean, it sort of does. We'll talk about the epilogue later, because we do get, the epilogue in this is crazy. The thing that makes this one so tough to read, I think, is just, you're in it knowing that it's going to have a terrible ending. Because, I mean, presumably this isn't the first Hunger Games book you're reading. You know who Haymitch is. You know at least part of his story. You know that he won in the 50th games and that he's an alcoholic, and you can presume he's an alcoholic for a reason, because he's had to watch year after year as 2 more kids from his district die, and there's literally nothing that he can do about it to help them. Number one, because District 12 kids are so disadvantaged in the games in the first place, but also, even if one of the District 12 kids becomes the victor, he knows what the life of a victor is, and it's not pleasant. So when he says that in the movie, one of my favorite lines in the first movie, embrace the probability of your imminent death and know in your heart that there's nothing I can do to save you, he means it. He really means it. Even if he can help you survive the games, there's nothing he can do to save you from the life of a victor. And the life of a victor is misery. It is misery and loneliness and trauma, and there's nothing to escape it. So either you die, or you live and die anyways. I'm really selling this book. Anyways, so I do think that it's a pretty rough read just because you don't have that beacon of hope at the end. It's just sort of like a downward slog of like, nope, it's just gonna get worse. It's actually just gonna keep getting worse and worse and worse, and you know that, and there's nothing you can do about it. Makes it a bit tough, but I think ultimately it's for the better. I think it sucks. However, I think that's one of the things that makes it good. I do seriously wonder how they are going to make this book into a PG-13 movie. I kind of hope that they will just say, screw it, we'll let R happen, because genuinely, I don't know how they can do this book without making it rated R. I mean, it's amazing that they were able to get by with PG-13 in Ballad, and there were a lot of sacrifices for that. There were deaths that were either not shown entirely, or they were changed, or I stand by the fact the weirdest choice in that entire movie is the fact that, spoilers for Ballad, okay, is the fact that the girl, Arachne, when she gets, stabbed in the neck with a bottle and then bleeds out, that's her death. Not a single drop of blood in that entire scene. He's like holding her neck as she's bleeding out. Not a single drop of blood anywhere. And then he even pulls his hands away, and there's a shot of his hands, no blood on his hands. And I know when I talked about that before, I did have some people say, I think it's symbolic because Snow doesn't think he has any blood on his hands. I hear you. I don't think that was the case at all. I think actually that was just them trying to stay PG-13. This part is spoiler free, so I can't say anything specific, but the deaths are really brutal. They are. And I know you're thinking, all of them are brutal. Yes, these ones are worse. A lot of these ones are worse, and we do get graphic depictions of them. It really made me sick to my stomach. There were a couple where it's just like, oh my god. I had to like set the book down and do a lap because it was just too much. So also, I read the book with my eyeballs, and I annotated it as I was doing all of like my reactions on Patreon. And then after that, so number one, after reading this book, literally less than 24 hours after finishing this was the Severance season finale. So between the two of those things, I was like wrecked. I could not think. I had to like take a break. I was just like knitting. Oh my god, I have to show you my socks. So funny story, I had bought a pattern for goose socks like 2 weeks before the book came out, and I was working on other socks, like more simple ones first to kind of get the hang of it, and then decided, no, actually, fuck that. I want my goose socks. I don't, trial by fire. That's always how I do it. So I've been working on these really cute socks that have geese on them. So sorry, I'm still figuring out that focus. Hello, there we go. So yeah, I kind of was just offline for a few days working on my goose socks because I literally couldn't think or process anything. So anyways, read it with my eyeballs and annotated it, took a break, finished Severance. Then I listened to the audiobook, and Oh, you think the book is bad when you're reading it? Oh, you think it's bad when you're reading it with your eyeballs? Yeah. Imagine listening to it. Freaking devastating, you guys. That's really how I would sum up this whole book. Actually, that's just how I would sum up the Hunger Games series as a whole. If I had to choose one word, devastating. That's the word I would choose.
Hey guys. Are any of you lawyers? Because I would like to sue Suzanne Collins for emotional damages for those last 3 chapters in the epilogue. Fuck you, Suzanne. What the fuck? I've literally been crying for like 30 minutes and I'm gonna have such a bad headache. And I have to go to work tomorrow and I'm gonna look like I've been crying all night because I have been. It was such a beautiful way to end it, but also fuck you. What the fuck? I was doing so good about doing my videos after every single chapter for my Patreon, and then I got to chapter 26 and it went out the window because I literally couldn't stop crying. Like, the last 2 chapters were bad enough, okay, but then you give us the epilogue. Fuck you. I love you, but fuck you.
Okay, all that said, this is now your official spoiler warning. From here out, everything is fair game, okay, for both this book, but also just spoilers for the whole series. I think is the safest way to do this, because who knows what I'm going to say. I think the plan is, I have my second camera. Hello, second camera. Can you... So same thing as before. I'll have my second camera. We can go through. I upgraded my highlighters. I'm going to go through square by square. We'll talk about it, and then there are a few things that I didn't have on my card that I kind of wrote down to talk about. I think a lot of them will come up naturally, but if not, some of the stuff we'll talk about at the end. Okay, with that, let's go through my card. Let's see how I did here. So the first square that we have here, new victors. Guys, of all of the squares I thought I wouldn't get, this is not one of them. I actually don't believe that we were introduced to a single new victor, because Haymitch's mentors are all people that we know. They're all people that we know, because turns out, and I do wonder, well, okay, we'll think about it later. Oh my god, finish a thought. Literally just finish a thought. You have to say them out loud. You can't just think them in your head. It doesn't count. It doesn't count if people can't hear them. Oh my god, guys. Okay. Getting myself together here. How about we use purple? What do you guys think? I'm thinking purple because I think it's the highest contrast, and nothing on here is purple. Also, yeah, let's do purple because the cover is purple too. Duh. Because District 12 doesn't have any mentors, they do call on other victors that are sort of just, I can't really tell if they're volunteers or if they sort of just get drafted. But Haymitch's mentors are Mags and Wyrus. And we learn a bit more about Wyrus. Devastating. That's the word. That's that's the name of the game here. Come to find out that Wyrus actually won the 49th game, so literally just the year before. And her arena was mirrors.
Give yourself up, Carlo.
Why would I do that, Detective? When I have the upper hand.
It was just a bunch of mirrors that distorted everybody's perception of reality. So you would be running away from a threat only to walk right into it because it was the reflection of a threat that you were running away from. And basically, Wyrus did win her games without killing anybody. So in a way, Wyrus' strategy is like if District 6 strategy also had brains. No offense to District 6, you guys know I love District 6. I've made 2 of my videos and one of them was on District 6. But yeah, Wyrus just sort of found a blind spot and laid down and waited it out. Which is, I don't want to say it's the most respectable way to win the games, because I don't think there is a respectable way to win. I don't think the games are respectable at all. But you really do have to admire the fact that not only was she so smart to be able to outsmart... We're 2 for 2 in a row here of people outsmarting the game makers. Because something that Haymitch mentions is that, watching the games is never funny. But if there was going to be a funny part to watching the games, it was seeing the game makers trying to deliver Wirus's sponsor gifts, because even they couldn't quite figure out where she is or how to navigate their own mirror arena to even get her the things that people were sending her. Like, they couldn't. And that is funny. She's literally better at their map than them.
Sick son of a bitch! Where the hell are you?
But the fact that she managed to outsmart the game makers and win without drawing a single drop of blood is pretty incredible. It does make me love Wirus more. But again, devastating, because come to find out, she's actually fine. She got out of her games relatively unscathed. She is very sharp and with it mentally. She's totally okay, or as okay as you could be, until she isn't, until the end of the book, when we learn that her and Mags and Beatty, well, Beatty has already been tortured, but her and Mags specifically get tortured after Haymitch's whole thing, and that's when Wirus begins to turn into the nuts of nuts and bolts that we know her to be by catching fire, which is... Guys, and she was so young. Absolute maximum. She's 19 years old. And she's already mentoring. Ugh. Other than Wirus, we have Mags and we have Beatty. And that's it. Those are the only other victors we know. I'm surprised there was no mention of Chaff at all. It's really interesting, like, this sort of middle group of victors, because it's really hard to tell who is older and who is younger. And I think myself and a lot of other people had like a warped perception of people's ages from the movies. I think part of that was just that, there wasn't anything on the books, so they just cast whoever they thought fit the role. But the fact that Beatty is a good bit older than Haymitch, I don't think it doesn't make sense. It was just like surprise. It's like, oh, okay, that gives me a lot of context. Haymitch was actually born on the exact day that Beatty was reaped. So Beatty was, I want to say, the 34th games, if I'm doing that math right. I don't know, it's almost just as interesting to notice the absences, because we do know a few of the other victors that at least I have had the understanding fit right into this age range too, which would be Cedar, Chaff, even Lime, the victor from District 2. I always thought she's very briefly mentioned in Mockingjay. If you don't know who I'm talking about, it's literally like a passing line. But my friend Nati is really into District 2, so we've had a lot of conversations about District 2 and the little bits that we know about them. So Lime, I always thought of her as being a little bit older than Haymitch. She never comes up. Anyways, really long way to say no new victors. And I'm surprised that that's the square that I got wrong. Okay, another square I did not get, the capital in transition of power. I think I kind of want to mark them in a way just so that I know that I went over them. I'm just going to put like a little star in the corner, I think, so I know that I've talked about them, but I'm not marking them off. So yeah, capital was, that's not a star. It could be. There's a star. Okay, so capital was not in transition of power, but our first one to cross off, yes, Lenore Dove is Covey. Did you guys see that? Anyways, Lenore Dove is Covey. That is one that I have gotten comments on since posting that, because again, my name is Dove. My best friend's name is Lenora with an A. So Lenore Dove, I was like, wow, thank you, Suzanne. Thanks for the shout out. I'm very much feeling the love. Seam Bro Friendship, yeah. Yeah, we got Haymitch. We got Burdock, which we're going to come back to in a second. Burdock and Blair are Haymitch's best friends, more guys from the Seam. So Burdock is Mr. Everdeen. That is Katniss's father, 100%. That is Haymitch's best friend. I keep calling him Burdock. I'm pretty sure the plant is pronounced burdock, but that feels wrong. So I'm going to keep saying Burdock. And if you don't like it, I'm sorry. So yeah, I'm gonna say yes to the scene bro friendship. 100%. But I do think it's funny because we have these two named friends, right? We have Blair and we have Burdock. Now I'm saying it the way I said I wasn't going to say it. So we'll just see how it comes out every time. And we know Burdock is Mr. Everdeen. Blair, not given a last name. And I feel like if it was intended to be Gale's father, like Blair Hawthorne, then number one, we would have been given a last name for him. And number two, when Hamish then describes like the fact that, you know, Burdock dies in a mine explosion in the epilogue, I feel like he would have mentioned that his other best friend also died in that. Because we know that that Gale and Katniss's father die in the same mine explosion. So Gale's father, not Blair. One of the criticisms that I've been seeing of this book is that people feel like it's too fan fiction-y, like there are too many people that we know showing up, and it's just... And to that I say, I totally understand how you would feel that way for everything in the capital. Like, as much as I love Effie, and I do love Effie, I was surprised that she showed up. Number one, I think everybody was a little surprised to learn that she's actually older than Hamish, which is interesting because when we're looking at the illustrated edition that I happen to have right here, oh my god, I'm knocking over my light in the process. Her illustration in the illustrated edition, I do wonder, did the illustrator get information a bit early? Because, I don't know if you guys can see that, Effie is in fact depicted as being a bit older, and of course Elizabeth Banks in the movies is younger and looks younger and presents younger. Not making a judgment here either way, I just thought it was interesting. It's not something that I was expecting. I know, I could see how people kind of feel like it's very fan servicey, at least in the capital, because we do get so many like, oh, it's another person we know, like really the gang is all here. But in District 12, guys, canonically there are 8,000 people in that town. 8,000 people in all of District 12. Yeah, we're gonna know a few of them. That's how small towns work. I think actually maybe the people who are saying this have never lived in a small town. My hometown is 2,000 people. There's a joke about like, you know, moving to a small town, you'll be the new guy in town for like 30 years. And it's not an exaggeration. So I totally see that criticism for the capital stuff. I just don't think it makes sense in District 12. Okay, so this next little bit here, the Tigress cameo. Sort of ambiguous as to whether or not this happened, because I have seen people say that it did, and I know what they're talking about, and I also personally feel like it did not. So, the people who would think that it did, there is a woman who is mentioned, and I'm going to see if I can find it, but I'm not going to look too hard. I'm just going to browse while I'm still talking to you. There is a woman who is in the front row at the interviews, and then she shows up again at the parties after Hamish's victory when he is being suspended in a bird cage. He's being held in a bird cage in the mansion. Anyways, there's this woman who is described to have cat ears. I don't think that this is Tigress. I've seen people make the argument of like, well, she was described in detail multiple times, so clearly, like, we're supposed to think something of it. However, it also doesn't seem like she is a stylist, which in theory at this point she would have been. It seems like she's really just there as a spectator, as part of like the, you know, capital elite, but not that she's personally involved in the games. And the way that she indulges in the spectacle of it, not as a stylist, but as a person who's fawning over the, oh, I want to like, you know, support my favorite tribute, all that stuff. It doesn't seem to fit with the direction that Tigress's character was going in Ballad, both in the movie and in the book. It's clear that by the end of Ballad, already Tigress and Snow are starting to feel this type of rift in ideology. And like, yes, Tigress is a participant. She is, you know, one of the people who is, you know, costuming these tributes for their death. At the same time, so is Cinna. And we know who Cinna is and what he stands for. So I don't necessarily think that her being a stylist in the games for so long is an automatic indictment of her just, you know, thinking, of course, the games are justified. Because again, that doesn't align with the ways that she was trying to mentor Coriolanus and push him in Ballad. Like, she is the one who tries to first convince him of Lucy Gray's humanity, who she's the reason that he's able to earn her trust at all to begin with. I'm gonna say that it didn't happen. I'm going to not include that because I don't think it did. However, if you're keeping score at home, I guess it's dealer's choice if you put that on yours and you want to cross it off. I just don't think it is. Oh, also, I should mention, so all of my tabs, the colors do have meanings. I put them at the front here. So, we got the dark, oh, I could just show you here. We got the dark color being a death, got this blue being like a big theme, pink is like a character study, yellow is when Katniss or Haymitch act in similar ways. We got a dove color for Lenore Dove. We have this light color for foreshadowing, blah, blah, blah. I have a bunch of stuff here. The important one is that all the red ones are bingo square answers. So I will be referencing my red flags here throughout this video. Okay, Haymitch shows a fondness for animals. Yeah, like multiple times over. And actually, you know what? Let's roll the tape here. Let's roll the tape here because I specifically talk about the geese in my original bingo video.
5 days until the new Hunger Games book is out, and we got another excerpt today. And if you guys are on my YouTube, I made a new book bingo, and I can already cross off Haymitch shows fondness for animals. You might be saying, but he had like a healthy respect of them, not fondness. To that I say yes. But who's gonna care for the geese at the end of the book? I feel like the geese are gonna mean more to Haymitch as the story progresses. And it makes it all the more heartbreaking when you think about, like, after the war, after the successful rebellion, when there is no more reaping days on Haymitch's birthday, which is something he literally could never dream about beforehand. The fact that he gets geese and he's finally like able to mourn in a healthy way with Peeta and Katniss there to support him as well. Like they're all just, found family.
I always loved the fact that he raised geese. The geese have so much more meaning now, okay? Actually, the bookmarks that I made for this one with the geese on them, I actually started the geese themselves. Those were like half finished from like a year ago because I started to make fan art of Haymitch and his geese, and I finally finished it after finishing this book. The fact that he brings Lenore Dove's geese some corn on reaping day, but then there's also all of these instances in the arena where he is seeing these dove-colored rabbits. They almost act as like a spiritual and emotional guide for him. The rabbits are like a recurring theme. He takes comfort in them. He sees them as allies. They alert him to important information. But he also, you know, sort of sees them as friends. He appreciates their sacrifice. He feels bad when the one rabbit dies, you know, sort of alerting him to this threat. He actually shares an apple with one at one point, refers to Lenore Dove as a goose girl, which, again, we got my socks here. Fun little fact, if you guys didn't know this about me, I was in 4-H. I did the poultry stuff. I raised chickens and ducks. I never had geese, but I do love all sorts of farm birds. So yeah, those are my... Sorry, I really am still figuring out this focus thing. Those are my goose socks. We're working on them. Learning that not only did Haymitch raise the geese, but the fact that Katniss stole eggs, and then Peeta built an incubator to hatch them, and then Haymitch was the first face that they saw, just like Lenore Dove had been for her geese. Are you kidding me? Literally, are you kidding me? Absolutely devastating. Honestly, you know what? Let's just roll the clip of me reading the epilogue, too.
I didn't want to have anything to do with their memorial book after the war. What use? What point to relive all that loss? But then when Burdock's page came up, I had to mention him showing me the grave. And then I felt compelled to tell them about Maisley Donner, the former owner of the Mockingjay pin, and how Sid loved the stars. And before I knew it, they all came tumbling out. Family, tributes, friends, comrades in arms, everybody, even my love. And I finally told our story. A few days after that, Katniss showed up with an old basket filled with goose eggs. Not to eat, to hatch. I raided a few different nests so they can breed all right. She's not an easy person. She's like me, Peeta always says. Wish she was smarter than me, or luckier. And she's the one who finally kept that sun from rising. Peeta fashioned some kind of incubator, and when the eggs hatched, mine were the first face those goslings saw. And sometimes they just graze on the green, but on fine days we've been known to wander on over to the meadow. Lenore Dove likes it best there, and I'm content where she's content. Like the geese, we really did mate for life. I'm not sure that I'll be here in the old there before much longer. My liver's wrecked, and I only dry out when the train's late. I drink differently these days, though. Less to forget and more out of habit. And when my time comes, it comes, but I have no idea when that will be. I know one thing, though. The Capitol can never take Lenore Dove from me again. They never really did in the first place. Because nothing you could take from me was ever worth keeping, and she is the most precious thing that I've ever known. And when I tell her that, she always says, I love you like all fire. And I reply, I love you like all fire too. Fuck you, Suzanne. What the fuck?
Okay, anyways, Hamish fondness for animals, check. Katniss mom name reveal, hell yeah, dude. So we got Burdock, Everdeen, where is that one too? Katniss dad name reveal, here it is. So we got Burdock Everdeen and Astrid March, who becomes Astrid Everdeen. Now, let's talk about Covey names for a second. So, actually, we're gonna talk about it as we talk about this too. So Mr. Everdeen, also Covey, confirmed. So we do learn that Burdock is related to the Covey. They are distant cousins. Within the Covey, there are the three girls, and they are all cousins who share a last name, right? They all have the Baird last name, which is Lucy Gray Baird, Maud Ivory Baird, and then Barb Azure Baird. Now we know Lucy Gray is gone. She's gone, that's the end of it. Lenore Dove's mother died in childbirth. And then we think about the Covey graveyard, which Burdock takes Hamish to towards the end of the book. There are headstones for Lucy Gray, Maud Ivory, and Lenore Dove. So Barb Azure, presumably, is still alive, which means that Barb Azure is most likely Burdock's mother, which would make Lenore Dove and Burdock Everdeen second cousins. Now, what I think is funny here is, of course, we have the Covey naming tradition, right, which is a ballad and a color. I would argue that the Everdeen name tradition is everybody is named after a plant, because Primrose, plant, Katniss, plant, Burdock, plant, even Astrid, plant, the Aster family. How do we feel about the idea that Everdeen used to be evergreen, as in something like a new naming tradition that would have originated with Barb Azure, where it's a plant, and then not a color, but also like, you know how you can anglicize names in order to try to minimize the discrimination that you and your family felt? A lot of us have, a lot of Americans, we have last names that have been anglicized from our original family names. So I kind of like the idea that it's Everdeen, but like in her heart of hearts, it's evergreen. Because it would be a new naming tradition that is different from the Covey, but also honors the Covey and the culture that had to be given up in favor of survival, which is a really great, not analogy, that's not the word that I'm looking for, but like parable. I think actually that it's a good parable of like the experience that so many have with, sort of disregarding and letting go of elements of our cultures in order to assimilate to whiteness because of the social capital that whiteness gives you in our society. I am third generation American on my mom's side. My great grandparents were from Portugal and Italy. And up through my grandparents, actually, Portuguese and Italian were my grandparents' first languages. Despite the fact that English was not their native language, they still only taught their children English. My mother could be trilingual in theory, but language is something that assimilation to whiteness for survival, for job security, for opportunities, that language is something that has been stolen from us, taken from us. My mother never got the opportunity to engage in her culture in that way, which is really sad. And this is a tale as old as time. So I could totally see this as being sort of representative of that in a post-America, North America, in Panem. Slight outfit change, because normally I'm sweating when I'm recording these, but I am very cold right now. And then the last thing that I'm going to say on the Everdeens names is that they are puns. So Astrid March, Katniss's mother, very specific spelling of the name Astrid. Most commonly, it's spelled A-S-T-R-I-D, right? Very straightforward. Notably, hers is spelled A-S-T-E-R-I-D, as in Astrids, as in the clade of plants. Now, Asteraceae is the official name of the family of Astrids. The family of Astrids. And do you want to take a quick guess on another type of plant that is a part of the Asteraceae family, specifically the Asterid clade? It's burdock. It's burdock. She's so on the nose while also not at all being on the nose. It's like you gotta dig for the joke here, but rest assured there is a joke. Again, I've said this before, I need to make an entire video just on the names within the series because of course, Suzanne Collins uses them as such a meaningful device. Like if you pay attention to the names, there's always a reason that a person is named that. I talk about this in my zine a decent amount, but like some names are district identity indicators, so like where you're from, they're reflective of the industry of the place that you come from. Some of them, a lot of the Greek and Roman names are basically mirrors of the type of plots you can expect of these characters. Quick one coming to mind, Seneca, as in Seneca Crane, also as in Seneca the Younger, got caught up in a plot to overthrow the Emperor Nero and was then forced to kill himself. I think we have heard that one before. But yeah, the fact that Astrid and burdock are from the same plant family, and they are also Katniss and Prim's family, and then also, by the way, Katniss and Prim are also from Katniss, as in the tuber called Sagittaria latifolia, I think is how you would say that, which is swamp potato. And then specifically evening primrose, because it's something that bothers me, okay? But in the movie, PETA is planting primrose. That is primrose. However, it's not evening primrose, and those types of primrose are not native to North America. Prim was named after evening primrose, which is native to North America, not as easy to find at the garden store. So I understand how it happened, but it's just a little thing that bothers me. But specifically evening primrose, not just common primrose. They're both part of the clade Trachyophytes. I think that's how you would say it. Anyways, so all of the Everdeens names are puns too, which is fun. So this next one is Haymitch shows defiance for the training score. So of course in the original trilogy, Both times that we see Katniss go in to get her training score, she does something a bit rebellious and something that does not make them happy. The first time, she of course shoots the apple out of the pig's mouth because she's frustrated that they aren't giving her the time of day. And the next time, she, hangs a dummy of Seneca Crane. So I thought, of course, because Haymitch and Katniss are so similar, that he would surely do something rebellious for his training score as well. So, of course, Haymitch, yes, does something rebellious. It's really just a conversation. He doesn't even, demonstrate a skill other than the skill of being kind of like a cocky asshole. But it's all so calculated. That's the thing, is Haymitch is kind of like if Katniss were Peeta. And what I mean by that is that Katniss is really good at survival. She is really good at strategy when it comes to physical moves, like the things that she does. But she has, once again, a very bad sense of people. She's not very good at being able to manipulate the way that she comes off. She just is who she is, and however you're going to interpret that, that's Katniss. She's not good at being inauthentic. Whereas Peeta, not that he's inauthentic in any way. I think, if anything, he's sometimes more so than Katniss because he is so much more open and willing and able to share his own feelings and emotions in a way that Katniss doesn't have the capacity to do. At the same time, Peeta is also a showman, and he knows how to manipulate those perceptions of himself in order to drive people to believe things or to act in certain ways. And I feel like Haymitch is just as skeptical of people, and he is just as good at the physical doing of things as Katniss, but he also has Peeta's mind for crowd control and, how to be a star in the ways that he finds appropriate for the goals that he's trying to achieve. So anyways, this is what goes down, and you can see I really did fuck this thing up. I mean, not in a bad way, just I did a lot of annotation. Anyways, the head game maker, Festina Gripper, a short, ample woman with close-cropped metallic and silver gold curls, is distinguished by the purple fur collar on her snowy robe. She praises me, then commands, "Tell me about yourself." I cock my head, look her dead in the eye, and say, "I'm Haymitch Abernathy from District 12. I shouldn't be here. I was reaped illegally, but nobody cares. My neighbor, Luella McCoy, was the one person here I gave a hang about, but you killed her and brought in a body double, so that kind of frees me up to win the games." "And what makes you think you can do that? We haven't noticed that you possess any outstanding skills," the head game maker says. "Really?" I smirk. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like I came up with 31 people who've promised to defend me. But maybe that strategy is a little too subtle for you." Her mouth tightens. "And you're willing to let them die?" "Why not, lady? You are." Iconic. Iconic. And then they give him a training score of 1, which is technically a retcon of what we know from Catching Fire. However, I really do feel like Suzanne Collins kind of set herself up in a way that really works, of her being able to retcon and change things without it being bad. And in fact, it only further serves the theme and the narrative that she's trying to portray in this story, because the whole point of this book, the main central theme, is propaganda and the way that you can manipulate stories to make people feel certain ways. How, if you control information, you control people. So any bit of retconning that she does, where it's like, what we saw in Catching Fire isn't what actually happened, it only furthers that narrative. So the fact that he got a training score of 1 in the actual book, and in Catching Fire it says that he got one of 9, it actually just, hello bud, it actually just makes sense. Because also, like I wrote on my actual annotation, I do wonder the strategy on that one. It feels so obviously targeted. Like, I feel like it's more of the SATs where you get a 2 just for showing up. Like, to give Haymitch a 1, as Wyatt would later point out, when he has no obvious physical ailments, it's really pointing more to how they feel about his character, not necessarily his actual ability. So what has he done to make him seem threatening, to make the Capitol want to discourage people from supporting him? It makes him not only a more compelling tribute, but one worth betting on. All that to say, yeah, Haymitch shows defiance in his training score. A song that we know is sung. Yeah, sure is. It's The Old There Before, which, okay, here's the thing. I've seen people say both things about it, where they're like, oh my gosh, now that we have the context that The Old There Before is a funeral song, which we're going to talk about funeral stuff too. Oh my god, maybe I should have planned this video better, guys. There's so much to say. Yes, obviously, if you look at the lyrics of The Old There Before, it is talking about death. However, I would argue that doesn't necessarily solidify the idea that it is specifically a funeral song that is sung at funerals. Because there are a lot of songs that we sing about our own death, or like the death of others, that aren't necessarily sung at funerals. They're more so just pondering the concept of life and death, you know? But to specifically have Burdock sing The Old There Before at the funerals that take place at the end of the book, which is quite a few people. Hi, buddy. Say hi. Say hi. It really just gives it a whole new level. Okay, and this next one does complete my first bingo. I actually don't know, I have not checked this card before doing this with you specifically, so I actually don't know if this will be my only bingo, but it is the first bingo that I'm getting, which is that the end of the book is the sunrise on the 51st reaping. Maybe not like super explicitly, but also it 100% is. Here is the page, that is the epilogue, this is the last page, and it says, I make no plans, have no hopes, keep no company, speak to no human being except old Bascom pie when my nepenthe runs low. But I can't say I have no future, because I know that every year, for my birthday, I will get a new pair of tributes, one girl and one boy, to mentor to their deaths, another sunrise on the reaping. And when I remember that, I hear Sid's voice, waking me the morning that raven first tapped on my chamber door. Okay, happy birthday, Haymitch! He says happy birthday too, I guess. So yeah, that one was, damn, good for me. The next one that we have here is Expanded District Lore. Now, what I expected from this was basically just a little bit more information about some of our more neglected districts, like District 6 and 5 and 9. And we did actually get a little bit. I wouldn't necessarily say it was lore, but the way that I had it written down, and I think the way that I talked about it in my last video, I really just wanted those districts to be fleshed out a little bit more in any way, and I do really feel like we got that, especially because of Haymitch and his relationship with the tributes of District 6. He calls them his little broken doves, and he's very protective of them. They all sort of flock to him, pun not intended. So I would say that, especially with the character of Welly, which is the thing that I didn't say earlier during the spoiler-free part, but guys, Ampert was bad, okay? Ampert's death was really, really difficult, okay? But I was kind of expecting it to a degree. I couldn't have anticipated what it was, like what happened, but I was expecting it, right? It was devastating. I had a terrible time. Disgusting. One of the worst ways you could die, okay? But Welly's death was shocking, okay? Welly makes it to the top 3, and Haymitch is off trying to get some resources. You know, the milk that Haymitch drinks at Plutarch's house, instead of giving it to Snow, Snow sends him a picture of that it's Plutarch's pitcher. And so it's implied that the milk is poison. So while Haymitch is having a dilemma of like, how do I play this? Because I can't just give it to Welly, because then it'll seem like I poisoned her, because I would have, because I know it's poisoned, but like they don't know that it's poisoned, so it would seem like I did it. He's going through this whole thing while he's away, and then come to find out he didn't need to, because when he returns to where he had hid her, she's beheaded. Silka beheads her. I don't know how they're going to make this movie PG-13 unless they just omit all of these deaths, which sorry, I got the hiccups there, which I just don't, on one hand, I don't want to see it. On the other hand, I think the point is the violence. The point is how despicable all of this is and how inevitable it feels and how there is no clear path to escape it, and all of the things that happen in this book that are, you know, putting us on the path forward to eventually escape it, they all feel fruitless at the time because they don't really go anywhere. They don't stop it from happening, at least not in the immediate future. It takes another 26 years for it to finally stop. So, I don't want to see like a 12 or 13-year-old get beheaded. At the same time, I feel like it's important. I don't know. So anyways, yes to expanded district war. We did get to know characters from those districts a little better. We know that District 5 sides with the careers during this, so we don't get to know District 5 as well because they're not in our allyship, but we do get to know District 9 a little bit better. Loving the energy that they were giving to the District 1 asshole Panache, which is a hilarious name. It's like, okay, Biff Tanner. Why is he literally Biff Tanner? He's just like a caricature of a bully.
Go get it!
But even then, we get to know 9-Bit better. They have their sunflowers, of course, through Maisley Donner, which don't even get me started on Maisley. Maisley was such a bright spot in this book that I wasn't necessarily expecting. I made a TikTok and I'll insert it here. But Maisley and Drusilla just going at it the whole time, like leading up to the games, it really reminded me of School of Rock, where it's like, you're tacky and I hate you.
Billy.
You.
Billy, we've already told me off. Let's move on.
You're tacky and I hate you.
Okay, you see me after class.
I love Maisley. We're going to talk about her more later. Next one we have, well, I'm going to cross off my free space, I guess. Lucy Gray name drop, yes, because not only do we see her headstone when Haymitch goes and sees the Covey graveyard, but also while he is being kept in solitary confinement after his games, before he goes home, after he's out of the hospital, we learn that clearly Snow keeps a personal copy of Lucy Gray's games and interview and everything on deck because it plays for Haymitch, and he quickly realizes that this must be the other Victor from 12. She's Covey. Okay, guys, the next one is a capital deep fake, and this is my second bingo. I'm doing a lot better on this than I did on my Bridgerton bingo. Nothing could have possibly prepared me for just how right I was going to be about a deep fake. And in fact, I would argue I was even kind of double right, because on one hand, I was thinking of a deep fake through the lens of like AI as it's happening now, because I had a feeling that Suzanne was going to critique the use of AI because it's stupid and I hate AI, and if you use AI, stop. Stop. It doesn't make anything accessible. It makes plagiarism and art theft more accessible. Do you really need to outsource your own stupidity? Guys, just pay a nerd to do your homework like God intended. Anyways, I was thinking about it in that sense, okay? Nothing could have prepared me for the deep fake that I got, which was not just a digital, visual deep fake, right? It was an actual body double of Luella. After the real Luella died, they replaced her with a little girl from District 11, Lulu, who they call her Lulu, but she has been tortured so much that she has no remaining sense of her own identity, except in the spots where it kind of comes out, like when she hears Chicory singing a song from District 11, and she starts singing the song because she remembers. And then not only do we get Luella, the deepest of fakes, but then we do also get a random paragraph where Plutarch, okay, if you have watched my videos on Patreon as I'm going through this book, I hate Plutarch, you guys. I find him a fascinating character, okay? I think he adds a lot to the story. I think he's very valuable in the narrative. However, I hate him. I hate him so much, okay? And I do talk a lot of shit about him throughout this book. But one thing I can always count on him for is giving me a throwaway line about technology and the things that they have and don't have anymore. Very interesting piece of this is in Mockingjay. He just has this random, Katniss is like going through it, right? And he's just yapping. He's just yapping to whoever will listen, and he's talking about how we only have hovercrafts now. We don't really have like real jets anymore, and also we don't have satellites. I wish we still had satellites and all of these other things. So he is always giving me some information about tech that they no longer have access to. And one of those things is AI. It actually comes up specifically. Plutarch seems genuinely happy, saying he's going to be able to edit the clips together into some fine propos. He sighs when he mentions the tools that were abolished and incapacitated in the past, ones deemed fated to destroy humanity because of their ability to replicate any scenario using any person, and in mere seconds. He snaps his fingers to emphasize their speed. I guess it was the right thing to do, given our natures. We almost wiped ourselves out even without them, so you can imagine. But oh, the possibilities! So capital deepfake, I'm giving myself a double right for that one. Not actually, because it's just, I've already gotten 2 bingos. I think we're okay. Haymitch hates his prep team and stylist. I'm gonna give myself this one because although he doesn't hate his prep team, and honestly his prep team are kind of great, which I do want to say also, more name stuff. Their names are Vitus and Proserpina. So life and prosperity, which I don't know. I think that's really interesting because they are kind of the only 2 people, because certainly not Drusilla and what's his face, Magno, who is his escort and stylist respectively. And we later learn that they're married and then like divorced and then they get back together. It's a whole thing. They're useless, right? So the fact that Vitus and Proserpina actually do their best to try to help, they are his life and his prosperity. They are trying to give that to him. And then of course, come to find out, Proserpina is the little sister of somebody we all know by the name of Effie Trinket, which I'm so glad that Effie is there. I thought this was a great expansion of her character. It did give her a chance to kind of not reclaim, but like sort of attach some of the character development that happened exclusively in the movies, not within the books, because Effie is basically gone. All of Mockingjay, all of the stuff that happens in Mockingjay with Effie in the movies is more so happening with the prep team. I like that she was there. I don't necessarily agree with her. I think she has some problematic ideas. I also do appreciate how much humanity she has and is willing to show for the tributes, because I think the difference between Drusilla and Effie, sort of as being escorts, because also at the end we learn that Effie is given the job of District 12's escort because Magno and Drusilla get back together and Drusilla is like, forget this, I'm never doing it, is the fact that Drusilla remembers the dark days. She remembers the war. There's still very much this undercurrent of like true hatred for the tributes. Whereas Effie knows who Haymitch is. He shows kindness to her when she drops all of her stuff and he just immediately starts helping her. And she also refuses to buy into the idea after the games where people are trying to discourage her from being around Haymitch because he could hurt her. Like, he's a murderer, all of this stuff. And she's like, he's not going to hurt me. I know who he is. He is kind. He's a person. It feels like Drusilla is more representative of like this true personal hatred, whereas Effie doesn't seem to have any hatred for the tributes, but rather sees it as a necessary evil, as a patriotic duty. It kind of reminds me of the draft, honestly. That's like the thing that is ringing in my head, where it's like, he didn't choose this. We can all acknowledge that it's really unfair that people have to put their lives on the line like this. And also, it ultimately has to have, somebody has to do it. Somebody has to put their life on the line to protect our country, to protect the peace that we have. It very much feels reminiscent to people who morally understand that the draft isn't good, but also are like, but it has to happen. Like, so, I don't know. Effie is a very complex character. I just want to say, I should have planned this better. This has taken me so much longer to record than I had anticipated, and it's super disjointed. So like, I apologize. I plan to like do a good discussion of the book. That's clearly not happening. So I will 100% be making more videos in the future on this book that have more in-depth discussions. Maybe I'll do, how about this? How about this? Okay, in the comments, please let me know some things that stuck out to you that you would like me to talk about, either that I have already kind of touched on but you want me to go deeper within this video, or things that I didn't touch on at all that you would love me to talk about, and I will make a separate dedicated, like, let's have a community discussion type of video for this book, because just going through my bingo card and like talking about stuff as it comes up, there's just so much running through my mind. There's so much. This book is so content heavy, and there's just no way to cover it all without having actually planned better for it, and I made this before the book was out. So like, I didn't know what was going to be in it. All that to say, Haymitch hates his prep team and stylist. I'm going to give it to myself because, to be fair, he does hate his stylist and kind of his escort. And his stylist objectively sucks. Although, having him wear live animals is actually really funny. I mean, it's objectively bad. It's just so like ridiculous that it's funny. Also, I was kind of picturing him as Jeff Goldblum, which I think now that also, I have been keeping up with all of the casting rumors, like people are in talks. Having, oh my gosh, what's her face? Emma Thompson as Drusilla makes the idea of Jeff Goldblum as Magno even funnier. I would also love Martin Short. I think Martin Short would make a hilarious Magno. Okay, we can talk about casting on another day. I'm gonna give myself that one. Okay, next one, Heavensbee name drop. It was more than that, because Plutarch was just straight up like a pretty prominent character, but I'm also going to count it as like a name drop too, just because we do get name drops of random of his family members, because we end up in his house at one point, and his house has like an indoor garden, and they have like they're apparently into botany. They have all of these plants with little plaques and Latin names, and also notably a library. Oh, damn it, I guess I do have to talk about Plutarch. Okay, 1 second. The thing about Plutarch is I don't think that he is a bad person. I do think that he is a massive asshole, and just, it's very much like a check your privilege kind of thing. I understand that things aren't great in the capital because you also live under authoritarian rule with a psychotic president who poisons people in your house, right? Like, I get that. I get it. However, you still can't compare you can compare it, but you can't say like, oh, well, it's just as bad. It is objectively less bad because your children aren't forced to put their lives on the line. Like, I'm not saying that everybody within the capital can just like, just escape the tyranny, just play by the rules and not get into trouble. At the same time, you kind of can just play by the rules and not get into trouble. There is still a whole lot more agency that you have as a capital citizen in order to keep yourself safe and to, not be in the direct line of fire of this tyranny than the people of the districts do. So when you're talking down to Haymitch and saying like, well, it's not just you, like, yeah, but also objectively, it's way more them. Like, check your fucking privilege. As we learn that the Heavensbees have access to a huge library. They have so many books, which, Haymitch talks about the fact that so many other people, straight up books, like, hardly exist anymore. They weren't necessary. They got used for fuel in the fire. Survival took precedence over having access to knowledge, right? And the fact that the Heavensbees are one of the richest families in Panem, and they do still have access to this knowledge, is actually the privilege that Plutarch literally had access to all of these resources to become a halfway okay person. The fact that he was able to arrive at these conclusions, these you know, think about things philosophically, the theories of man, and all of the stuff, all of the philosophy points that the series talks about. The fact that he was even able to explore those is because of his own privilege. The people in the districts didn't get a chance to explore them in books because they were too busy viscerally surviving them. Read the room, learn when to keep your mouth shut. That's my thing about Plutarch. He never knows when to keep his mouth shut. He just sort of doesn't, he just pisses me off. I don't think he's necessarily a bad person. I just think that he is an asshole, and he is pretty, like, self-centered. And then my next one here is Snow is involved in the games, specifically poison. Yeah, I mean, he's not, like, a game maker. However, he clearly has heavy swing. He talks multiple times about how he's determined to make it the perfect quell, and he is clearly heavily involved. They also have, like, a pretty explicit discussion, again, all of this happening while Haymitch is in Plutarch's home, around, like, yeah, I poisoned that guy with some oysters. So, poison as a theme, and then the fact that, you know what, no, I am going to say he was involved in the games with poison because, again, he sends the milk. That is direct involvement, not even just, like, thematic involvement. So, yeah, I'm giving myself that one. Early rebellion organizing. Yeah. Yeah, I'd say so. They literally, something that I could not have possibly guessed would happen in this book is that they would try to blow up the arena. Haymitch tried to blow up the arena. When I say that this book is like if Catching Fire and Mockingjay were the same book, like it, I mean, there's even a plot to blow up the arena that involves Beatty and Wyrus and Mags. Katniss and Haymitch being narrative foils of each other, and then we'll discuss that towards the end too. Like, the fact that the whole epilogue, the point is, it wasn't that Haymitch did anything wrong, he just wasn't lucky enough. It just wasn't the right time. People weren't in the right positions of power. You didn't have an idiot in charge of the games like Seneca Crane. Like, Katniss was just luckier. She was just luckier. And unfortunately, Haymitch wasn't. Mentorship process explained. I'm gonna say yeah, because obviously, again, District 12 doesn't have built-in mentors, so it's mentioned that, like, oh, they're still figuring out who's going to mentor, and then of course we learn that other victors step in, basically, if the district doesn't have a victor. And I am curious at this point, because by the time that we get to the third quell, every single district manages to scrounge up a male and a female tribute who is a victor. So I am curious at this point, I keep losing this cap, at this point in the story, what's that looking like? We don't really have a good consensus of how the victors are distributed. Again, we don't get any new victors in this book, which I'm kind of disappointed about, to be honest. I'm glad we got time with Mags, because that was a big thing that I wanted out of the possibility of a Finnick book, except again, I don't want Finnick's games. I would rather it be Annie's games. Oh my god, that's the thing too, right? So this has convinced me more than ever. Specifically, the fact that Haymitch tries to flood the brain of the arena, right? And is successful. He does manage to do that. It's just that the backup generator works a little too well, and so it doesn't actually do all that much. But Haymitch does successfully blow the water tank and floods the brain of the arena. You can't tell me that wasn't exactly what happened during Annie's games, because we know that the only reason Annie is a victor is because the arena flooded and she was the only one who could swim, or she outlasted everybody else swimming. They say that it was an accidental dam break. I believe that's how it's described. Can't tell me that they weren't pulling some shit. They were trying to mess up the arena again, 100%. If it was happening in the 50th games, it for sure happened again before the 75th games. That's suspicious as hell. I do wonder if she was the one who was involved in it, or was it somebody else and this was just like a consequence. More than ever, that has now convinced me that I would like a book, because I, again, talked about this before. I never wanted a book of Phoenix games. I don't really want to watch a 14-year-old win the games and then get sexually abused. I actually don't want to watch that or read that. But I would be interested in Phoenix, a book from Phoenix's perspective as Annie's mentor, because in my mind it's like, oh, we would get more time with Mags while she could still talk. We would get to know Finnick better. We would get to see, what was going on rebellion-wise at the time, because Finnick clearly was already involved with the rebellion. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been involved in the Quell, right? So yeah, I'm really glad we got more time with Mags. I think that's the only point I was getting to. And yeah, that is my third bingo. It's my fourth bingo. We have a vertical one too. Okay, anyways, Maud Ivory appearance. Here's the thing. She's dead, but I'm going to count it because she's name dropped multiple times and we see her headstone. So we get a close to her story. We know what happened. She died during childbirth. We see her grave. I'm going to count that as a Maud Ivory appearance. Friends and family experience is something we still do not get. Well, I mean, we do. We do get the friends and family experience. It's just not it's not the one that I meant. we get the friends and family experience, not in a good way. But I'm not going to count it because that one, I meant like I wanted to see what it was like for people watching at home, and that is not something that we get. Important scene in the meadow. Damn it. Yep, we get a pretty important scene in the meadow, don't we? I don't feel like I need to expand on that one. And then the last one is a victory tour. Now, I'm going to cross this off, and I'm going to explain to you why. I thought we were going to get a bit of a more in-depth look at what the victory tour was like. I thought maybe it would happen like right after the games. It is briefly mentioned in a couple of sentences. He gets carted around. So it is technically covered within the book. But I actually don't even want to talk about that one, because before the official victory tour, I don't think Haymitch realizes, and I don't think a lot of people reading might have realized this, but there's a victory tour right after the games. I'm going to read you the scene, and then we'll talk about it a bit more. Finally, after an all-night party at the Capitol Zoo, the peacekeepers transport me to the deserted train station, which is still hung with the propaganda banners. No peace, no prosperity, no Hunger Games, no peace. And President Snow's parting shot, Pan Am's #1 peacekeeper, which is so Trump-coded. I literally laughed out loud when it's mentioned earlier in the book. That is so incredibly Trump-coded. A doctor who waits at the door of the train deftly removes my pump, leaving oozy spots where the teeth secured it to my chest. I can't pretend I'm sad to see it go, although within minutes the drugs wear off and my scar starts to hurt. No bunk bed with the stiff quilt for me. Back in chains, I'm locked in the room Plutarch once freed me from. He's nowhere to be seen now. I guess the show's over for real. I wrap Great Uncle Silius's champagne bubble jacket tightly around my body and sit in the corner, feeling the pain blossom across my gut. The Capitol's got every reason to get rid of me, but the train refuses to budge. I have to get home. I have to know what has happened. After a couple of hours, a peacekeeper comes in with a roll and a carton of milk. Still on the snow diet. "Why aren't we moving?" I said. "Been waiting for your friends," he replies, with a nod to the window, then goes. "My friends? I have no friends here." Does he mean my team? I look out the window of my cell. 3 carts are being rolled down the platform. Each carries a plain wooden box. After a momentary confusion, I put it together. They are coffins. Luella, Maisley, and Wyatt will be riding home with me. I thought them long buried, peacefully resting in their family plots on the hill in District 12, but instead we will finish this journey together. I slide back down the wall, shaking uncontrollably. I think of the state their bodies must be in, violated by chariots and blades and birds. I imagine their families, weeping and waiting at the station, turning their backs on me, or, worse, turning their faces to me for explanations. Does the capital always send the fallen back with the victor, or is it a parting gift for me in particular? I can hear the muffled thuds as they load the coffins onto the train, quite close to me, the next car, I think. Doors slam shut. The train begins to roll, and I curl up on the floor, my face against the wall, wishing I'd earned a coffin as well. But no, I have a homecoming to enjoy. And then we're going to skip around, because he's thinking about Lenore Dove. But all the while, they are traveling. We travel through the day, far into the night. Once in a while, there's a stop somewhere to fuel up. Every few hours, rolls and milk are delivered, although I haven't touched a mouthful. My gut aches and the hard floor digs into my unpadded bones. When I manage to doze, dead tributes pay calls. They seem to want me to do something, but it's unclear what it is. The strangest visit involves Luella and Lulu, dressed in identical outfits, sitting across the table from me while I peel and eat a bowl of hard-boiled eggs. Which of us is which, they ask me, but the capital has won, and I can't tell them apart. I jerk away to find the train has pulled into the District 12 station. I am home. The peacekeepers come in, remove my shackles, and lead me to the exit. The door opens. "Get out," says one. Full of trepidation, I step out onto an empty platform, gritty with coal dust. No one waits for me. No one expects me. It's still dark out, and the station reads 5 a.m. The peacekeepers carelessly shove the coffins out after me, damaging a few boards, and the train pulls away, leaving me entirely alone except for my fellow tributes. I walk over to them, lay a hand on the nearest coffin. Screwed into the lid's a metal nameplate, not unlike the ones at Plutarch's house, the ones in the berms in the arena. I touch the inscription. Luella McCoy. The smell of death rises through the cracked wood. I turn and propel my stiff body down the platform. So the reason that I read all of that and bring it up is because we know that it does not take a full day to get from District 12 to the capital. We know this because at the beginning of the book, the reaping happens in, mid-afternoon for them. And, they get on the train, they're there for a bit, they have dinner, they have his birthday cake, they go to bed. By the time they wake up, they're basically going into the tunnel that leads to the capital, right? So it's been, maybe 18 hours tops. But when Haymitch is getting brought home at the end of the games, that's at least a 24-hour train ride with multiple stops. They don't make any mention of stops on the way to the capital, but they're stopping every few hours to fuel up. I don't think Haymitch realizes that it's not just District 12's tributes that are getting brought home. And we can also point to the original Hunger Games, like the first book in the 74th. We have that scene at the end where all of the mutts are attacking, and Katniss realizes that they resemble the tributes. She even wonders, are those their real eyes? Which I don't necessarily think that they are their real eyes. However, it's heavily implied that they are in fact using genetic data from the dead tributes to create mutts that look like they could be using their real eyes. Which to me also implies that the bodies aren't sent back until the games are fully done. So I think on his way home, in a weird way, Haymitch is being carted around on a very fucked up victory tour as they deliver the corpses of the other dead tributes back to their districts. Sorry to end it on that. This is very depressing. Okay, so I didn't get any of the diagonals because I missed 2 of them, but let's see, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bingos. I was only, 4 squares away from a blackout, which is pretty crazy. That's pretty insane. So anyways, this has been really fun. Great to chat with you guys. Again, if there's anything in particular that you want me to discuss in a future video, please let me know in the comments. There's just so much to cover in this book. Again, if you want to hear me talk in depth about a lot of stuff, you can join me on Patreon. The $3 tier and up gets access to all of my reaction videos of this book where I discuss things as I am working my way through it. The videos for that range from 7 to 25 minutes per chapter. And I do have one for every single chapter, although a couple are like 2 chapters at a time. So yeah, you can check that out on my Patreon. Again, the poll for which district deep dive we will do next will also be closing on this date right here. So if you want to get your voice heard, do that. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed hanging out. Please let me know what you thought of the book. How does it rank in comparison to the others for you? Is it your new favorite? Did it not even crack top 3? I would love to hear all of your thoughts. Anyways, thank you guys so much for hanging out. I will see you guys again in the next one. Be sure to like, subscribe, all of that good stuff. You know how it is.